Good evening, guys. Welcome to this week's Wealth Creation Show, episode 4. We're getting into 4. Hey, we're getting to the double figures soon.
That's right.
So we're going to be talking about property sourcing tonight. Just a couple of hellos here. Hi, Heather. How are you? Fantastic to see you tonight. Absolutely. Everybody give us a big thumbs up if you're with us. Great to interact tonight. Remember, this is an interactive session. If you're getting something out of it, or if you want to ask a question, please feel free to ask. It's all about property sourcing. It's all about wealth creation as well. So there is questions as well. If you want to ask, please feel free to do that. Good evening. How are you? And also, George. Hi, George. How are you as well? Yep. And let's kick off in the news. So what's happening so far in the news? So what have you heard so far?
So today, it looks as though Michael Gove has decided to replicate the landlord registration scheme for Scotland. With that, though, there is a number of sort of caveats. So he's looking to also push the green agenda and getting all these things, all these properties up to EPC of C. However, they're not committing any government funding to assist with that, so it comes with challenges.
Absolutely delusional. I mean, how on earth can you manage to do that? I definitely think we'll go back to the old scenario. Everybody thinks we're running about in Ferraris and making an absolute fortune. That is not the case. We make money as we go and we build wealth over time. That's actually quite interesting because it takes me into these two slides. I've been right into Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. So the two slides that I actually thought out of this was brilliant for what we do. And the first one here is, you don't make money when you buy, and you don't make money when you sell. You make money when you wait. That's a classic, eh?
Absolutely.
That's it. I mean, that is it in a nutshell, what property investment is, eh? And that was Charlie Munger. And the other one, investing in 2022, the recommendations, active investors need to be patient. Now, we talk about this all the time. This is all about being patient. And what do we mean by patience? We're really talking about, you need to wait for the right deals to come up. I mean, you'll see them. It's all about, let's talk about this. Active investors need to be patient. I'll jump back to this tonight so you can see us. You need to be patient and wait for the right deals to come up, but you need to prepare at the same time in order for that opportunity to appear, for the point of readiness to happen. Now, give me a big thumbs up if you understand that. And I'll say that again. You need to prepare for the time that the opportunity arrives, and that is where the magic happens, the point of readiness. So it's preparation, opportunity arrives, you're the first in there, you get the deal done, you've done all the work to do that, and that's where the magic happens. That is the sweet spot. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. Opportunity and preparation, where the meat is point of readiness.
I refer to it as having a war chest.
Yeah, well, effectively, yeah, it's building up that knowledge, isn't it, James? Over time. And the other one I would say is passive investors need to continue on normally, and that's so true in our business, isn't it?
It is, and it's very easy in the beginning to think, "Oh, I'm going to buy everything," but you can't possibly buy everything. But that'll lead us on to the topic on tonight's show. Yeah,
I mean, it is a point of you need to be patient, you need to wait, but you need to prepare for that opportunity to arrive. Evening, Richard. How are you? Richard's our Lettings Directors, if anybody knows. Can I ask a quick question just now for anybody for the people watching out there, okay? Because there is people watching it, we know that. So is this, give me a thumbs up if it's your first time, and if you've been in property investing for maybe less than a year, or you've not started at all. Give me a thumbs up if that's the case. If you've been in property investing for more than a year, give us a smiley face. Now, the reason I'm asking that is because then it lets us understand what level of knowledge we have to pass on, and how to pass it on, and how to be clearer about what we're saying. Just wait for that to come through. And in the meantime, when that's coming through, and for me, it's all about, I'm on a speakers course, one of the best speakers going, and he's absolutely fantastic, Andy Harrington, and he's really good at what he does. I'm learning a lot, And one of the key phrases I took out today is a belief is something you learn and something that programs your behavior and your thinking. Now, your beliefs are learned from other people and as you grow up. So if you're not where you are just now, then the object of the exercise is to help you change that way of thinking in order to get you where you want to be. That makes sense, eh?
Absolutely. I believe it makes sense anyway.
So we've got a couple of thumbs up and a couple of things, and we've got Heather restarting.
Restarting.
Yep. Heather, yep, we know definitely. So myself as well, James as well. So we're all kind of we know about property and all the rest of it. So it's pretty straightforward. This will be interesting. We'll talk about this, Alan, possibly right now. No, we'll talk about this right now. Come on, Alan. Okay, so questions for later. No, we won't. We'll just talk about this now because this is in the news, isn't it? Will landlords look to offload properties due to the new costs? What's your thoughts on this, James?
So some may and some may not. However, where there's adversity, I suppose you could say there's opportunity. So I'm quite happy to buy.
You're not running to be a politician, are you?
No, but I'm quite happy to buy tenanted property. You know.
What does everybody else think? Does everybody else think that landlords will sell? So in your comments, just post in there, do you think landlords will sell up as a result of all these impending legal requirements, especially the EPCs and the requirements? We did a show at the weekend about that. You know, in England, EPCs could cost a landlord up to £10,000. The same here as well, actually. You know, it could cost more than £10,000 to do. So it'd be interesting to hear anybody's comments about, do you think landlords will leave the sector, or do you think landlords will come into the sector, or do you think it will just be the same? I'd be interested to hear in the comments from anybody.
And what I would say is a bit of mitigation as well, is if you're buying property now, have the EPC of C at the back of your mind and have it ready. Better to be future-proofing your properties now than have to worry about it and have a mad scramble try to get trades when it comes in.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you don't want to leave it to the last minute. Although I've been bitten before with this, with changing, changing all the smoke detectors and heat detectors and hardwire and everything, and then they suddenly say, well, you don't need to hardwire anymore. You can just have them interlinked and actually talking to each other through radio. And it's like, oh, great, thanks for that. I've just disrupted all my properties. And then I did the same thing when the electrical legislation came in. I changed all my fuse boxes, all to the current requirements, and it was composite boxes was allowed. And then they turned around a year later and said, oh, we're going to change it back to metal now. It's like, thanks for that.
The thing is, if you change it again, Jim, you're best placed now. You know.
Maybe I should start a lobby for the government to change it back. So Susan actually says no. Heather's possibly not sure, but unnerved about the whole process and what's going on. I'm like you. I actually think there's an opportunity. I think every single time a bit of legislation comes in, and for me, and I don't like to say it, but when I see other landlords saying I'm selling up, I'm kind of like, I'm buying. If you're selling, I'm buying.
We're always buying, Jim, if we can.
But then I go back to the Warren Buffett thing. It's when people are fearful, that's when buying opportunities appear. That's really what it comes down to, and that's why we go back to what we exactly said before. It's right there. Active investors need to be patient, and passive investors need to continue on normally. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, that is classic wealth secrets, belts and braces. And you would think it's common sense, but the reality is common sense isn't that common, is it?
It's not, unfortunately. It's like any market-driven economy, though, Jim. You know, people buy shares and they'll see it dropping about 6 pence in the pound or something. And they decide, oh, I'm going to sell. And then there's a bounce and they lose out. So, yeah.
I've got Kevin jump in there, and he said, actually, on the topic of EPCs, do you guys think grade C for rentals by 2028 will happen? Oh, what do you think, James, first?
I don't think it'll happen as soon as 2028, but I'm conscious that the 2030 agenda's floating around, so that it'll be as soon as well, as close as they can get to that as possible. Obviously, there's a longing eventually to go to net zero, and I don't know how they're going to do that. Solar panels, wind turbines, all that sort of stuff. Well, particularly wind turbines, you need plan permission for them at the moment, and you can't be within 100 yards of the nearest house, so it doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's so, Kevin, just to answer your question, so we're clear on this. EPCs are supposed to be up to C by 2028, according to the government. But I think really at the end of the day, it's going to be an aspiration. There is clauses in there to mitigate in case someone can't get to that level and still has to continue to rent. Probably the classic ones out of that is farm estates where they rent to their workers, because they're all in cottages, and there's no way these cottages are getting to a C grading, unless they're putting ground source heat pump, air source heat pumps, and then they're putting, like what you said, turbines. But that'll be far too prohibitive. That could never happen unless the government is actually going to help out.
Or even insulate for the inside when it's a stone built building that's not got any cavity as such in the walls. Then they're going to have to insulate from inside, and that comes at a huge cost.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be possible, and I think again it's an aspiration. So, but what I keep coming back to saying, this is the thing about panicking. People immediately think that it's going to be EPC by 2028 or you're out the game. But the reality is that's never the case. I've learned that over the years, loads and loads of times. I've just learned to be patient and just go on as normal. And that's what I keep saying about property investing. It's pretty boring. but it does have good returns. I've got to admit, and I'll be honest today, and I'm crowing and I'm no. So I bought 17 properties last year, and I got my rent in for the month for these 17 properties, and it was 7,400, like 8 to 8 grand, just like that, for a year. Wow. And I'll discuss one of them tonight. But I mean, even if you would just make a couple of £1,000 out of this every single month, when you think about that, that's replacing the average salary, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's going back to the why. Some people want to do it to supplement income, top up a pension, or some people want to go hammer and tongue like us, Jim, and build a legacy for family and stuff.
Yeah, well, but I'll come back to saying, and I don't know what is everybody else's aspirations. Give me a thumbs up if your aspirations is to possibly give you an income in order for you to have choices and have freedom from whatever it is, your work or that. Give me a thumbs up. If it's you're just, I don't know how else to say that. Just give me a thumbs up. I mean, what would be the alternative? You just do nothing. you just go on with your job. Now, I love my job in industry, and I would take it back in a heartbeat. But I know my job will never give me the return that I get just now, and it will never give me the satisfaction I've got now in what I'm doing now. But I still loved my job at the time, and a lot of people actually continue. There seems to be this sort of, I hate my job, I have to get out of it, and I think that's but see for me, I condition myself. This is key here. Now this is where I was in the beginning, James. So this is where I was about 3 or 4 years into property investment. I started conditioning myself and the fact that people around me were going, oh, well, we hate our jobs and we don't like them and all the rest of it. And I thought, what am I conditioning myself for? Because I've got to put up with that job for the rest of my, until I retire. Now, that for me was about 23 to 38. No, it worked out it worked out about 12 years it took me. So, and I know that's a bit thingy, bit weird, but it did work out about 12 years, I'm sure it was, till I retired. Yeah, I did. So it worked out at 12 years eventually. But the key here is, I think you shouldn't do things like that, because all you're doing is programming yourself every single day in a negative way.
You might say that, but it's a change I'm looking for, really. It's not to give it up.
Yeah.
It's just a change. Something different. Something that I've got a bit more passion in.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, for me, it was as well. I moved from career to career, and I love what I did. But obviously, it's like you get to a certain point in the job, and you think this is just like. I used to think, well, a monkey could do this. It's like they don't need me. I genuinely, I used to think like that, because I got it to the point where I'd actually made everything so efficient in my job. I used to take a 5-day week and put it down to 2.5 days and make it so efficient that the whole thing would run in 2.5 days, or the workload I was given when I came in the door. So I thought to myself, well, somebody else could do this quite easily now. And you don't really need me anymore because there's nothing else for me to improve on. And the last thing I want to do is sit and rubber stamp things every single day, if that makes sense. So that's for me why I actually continue to climb the ladder in terms of career progression and job progression. But I did find what I was learning in the property investment world and the books, the tapes, the upline support, the mentors, and all the rest of it. What I was learning in that was actually helped me immensely in my career at the same time. So it was a to coin a phrase, a double whammy. I was getting the best of both worlds. I was getting this system that I'd actually built and books, tapes, and upline support and that and mentoring. And I'd also, it was getting in my career and also getting into my investing. And it's actually still with me now when you think about it. You know, the great thing I know about property investment is it's like a book. It's passive because it's like a book when you spend all that time and all that effort in the beginning to actually put it all together. And then once you've put it all together and it's up and running, you can go do something else and you can just let someone else look after it. And it's more or less hands off after that. So all the initial costs and the effort is in the beginning to get it started, just like a book. And then after that, we're up and running. And then as long as you don't poke it and prod it and one of the big lessons I learned, and here's the key here, and I want to make this more interactive. So hopefully, if you guys have learned any lessons in property, what to do and what not to do, please share them in the comments. Would love to hear them. But one of the lessons I've learned, and maybe you could share one of yours as well, was the key was to leave it alone if it's working. And genuinely, I keep saying to people, it's great being bored because boring pays well. And you'll understand that if you're of my mindset where you just have to keep going with things. And that's really what comes down to it. What have you learned so far? What's the biggest thing you've learned so far, James?
So I'm obviously not at the scale that you are, Jim, by multiple properties all at one time and getting multiple refurb teams in and so on. So I have to be quite conscious and clear when a project's coming to the end, when I can then daisy chain into the next property, because there's nothing worse than still being partway through a project and you've got the new property and you're paying council tax for 2 months, 3 months until you can get a team onto it. I will grow to a scale similar to you at some point, but yeah, I'm not at that stage yet. So
well, it's like the old thing. It's like the old thing. Richard keeps saying. I keep saying to Richard, he's 20 years behind me in his age, and I keep saying, maybe you'll catch up with me one day, Richard. But you'll never, when you think about it, because if I keep going and you keep going, you'll possibly never catch up with me because I'll always be ahead of you. But then that's what I took great faith in the fact that I used to look at people far more successful than me and have been in the business in other areas a lot longer than me. Alan Sugar's probably the biggest example for me as a billionaire in property, because Alan Sugar is property billionaire. He's not electronics anymore, and he's a property billionaire. But Alan Sugar's got about 15 or 20 years ahead of me. And I think to myself, wow, where could I be in 20 years? I could be where Alan Sugar is quite easily in 20 years. And that's my ambition. And that's what I see every single time. People like that have gone before me and blazed that trail. And I just think, wow, that's where I could be. So I do actually realize, rather than beat myself up about being in the now, because you look at people that are more successful than you and instantly criticize yourself about the fact of how you know doing this and how you know like that. And, oh, I could never do that. And I could never do this. But you still have to remember out there, for everybody watching, when you start your property journey, we all started at the same place. We talked about it last week. I mean, I was terrified when I started. And literally, before that, I was homeless and I was unemployed. And I had no skills at all. I had no education. I had maybe 3 O grades and a higher. A C or passed in mathematics. That was about it. With a bit of help from a tutor, scraped it. But that's effectively what I had. And that's where I started out in the beginning. And it was from 0 to where I am just now. So I understand everybody's journey throughout the whole process and what they've done or what they're going to have to do to get that and how to overcome that, because I've been through it.
And I use the analogy quite often. I'm quite sure you've heard me say that I'm a relatively small fish in a big pond. But don't compare yourself to others. We've all started at that same point. And to go back to Richard's situation, well, Richard's 20 years younger than us, so he's at a good stage in his life to you know, make more out than I could.
Yeah,
even, you know.
absolutely. I would say that as well. Quick one, Susan. Yes, we will cover this next week because we've probably got a wee bit less time now. But I've possibly because I've never read the draft yet.
We'll talk about that at the head of the show,
That's
actually.
possibly why. It's like I look at it and think, oh God, War and Peace. But I will read it and go into it. But I'd be interested to know your comments or your thoughts on it, Susan. That'd be absolutely brilliant if you could do that. Okay, so let's kick off. Let's talk about the main event. We're going to talk about, possibly we'll fit in one of my properties at the end, at Memorial Road, actually. This is a brilliant one that I did last year. So we're going to talk about property sourcing tonight. So where do we start with property sourcing? Is everybody out there, if you're with me, give me a big thumbs up. If you're not with me, give me a smiley face. But we're going to talk about property sourcing. We're going to begin at the beginning. It sounds like a song there somewhere. But what's your thoughts on where to start? Now, for me personally, I have it kind of into 4 different categories. And I call it scan. Okay, so scan the market. We've got a sourcing, we've got contacting, we've got advertising, and we have negotiation. That's the 4 key areas I would say to actually combat in property sourcing. So, what's your first sort of advice on property sourcing, James? What would you think? Where would you start off?
I'm still trying to jump. I did write them 2 weeks ago. Just give me a second and I'll pop open the notes.
Estate agents, possibly.
Estate agents, absolutely.
Do you think you're too late? What do you do with estate agents? Do you think you're too late by the time we get to estate agents?
Probably for the best deals, potentially, then yes, you can be. But the thing with estate agents is don't just go and kick the door down and say, right, I want a 30% below market value property and I need it now. You know, you have to spend time and build a bit of rapport with your agents. And don't do that thing where you just go in guns blazing, because it doesn't work and you just look silly. And even if you get added to mailing lists, you know, you might be lucky to get an opportunity once in every 6 months or something. But
constantly browbeating them, constantly actually getting in touch with them every single time and saying, how are you getting on? Have you got anything for me? Has anything come up yet? And going through that process. Is that probably the best advice?
I would say that's probably the best way, is, you know, butter them up, flatter them a little. You know, there's no harm in taking an agent out for a coffee. I mean, we've had this discussion before that agents may get a bit peed off for drinking so much coffee. But yeah.
No, I don't. I don't at all. Do you know, in all the time that I've actually been in this business, I don't think anybody's ever actually phoned me up and says, Jim, you want to go for a cup of coffee? Genuinely. And possibly that they maybe think I'm a wee bit higher or I'm in a different playing field or that. But there has been times where people have actually approached me for advice on maybe working in the industry, and I employed them straight away, because I thought, if you've got the bottle to approach me and ask me that question, you've got something. I'll tell you that straight away.
About that, Jim. No, anyway. Okay. We'll talk about it for another day. But I have went into estate agents, you know, after buying a property through the estate agents, and went into a small hamper, just, you know, to share amongst the people in the office. Because obviously I appreciate the time and effort that they went to. Okay, they get a commission of whatever. I don't know how the fee structure works with estate agents and stuff as such. But yeah, it's always good to build that rapport with estate agents, and, you know, small things that will make you remembered for the next time. Because there's always a next time.
It is about being remembered, isn't it? More than anything.
Absolutely.
And if you want to wear a funky T-shirt or something like that, it's something that makes you stand out. Or if you've got, I don't know, if you've got bright green hair, something that makes you, but anything that makes you stand out. So I know, but anything that makes you stand out and not in a bad way, but just in a way, in some sort of way, so people do remember you as a result of that. That's probably my best advice. I mean, what is, just to ask the audience, what experiences do you have with estate agents? You know, we're approaching them. If you have any experience at all, what have you done in the past? Have you actually spoken to an estate agent? How have you got on? Has the approach worked for you? You know, that kind of thing. So I'd be interested to hear your feedback on that for the people
The other
watching.
thing with estate agents, Jim, particularly with the national chains and things, they don't seem to realise what we're getting at as investors and what our sort of target properties are. They hear about investors, but that's as far as it, you know, they don't peel into the onion or the orange or whatever. And it's, oh, as an investor, but you know, we're the conduit to taking a lot of these properties off people's hands, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, you know, I would say as an estate agent, you've got to keep people like yourself sweet, because
Yep.
there's always a down when there's an up at some point in time.
Yep.
And I tell you what, if you've annoyed everybody on the way up, they're not going to look after you on the way down.
Yep.
And
And
that's the reality.
the other thing as well is obviously leverage of local knowledge. You know, Fife's a pretty big county, and as you know, I've got property scattered all over. And it's not to say I know absolutely 100% how well a property is going to perform in a certain area, but leverage knowledge.
Yeah, I was looking at Glasgow last night for a property. I was actually got the fear, the sweats. It's like, I'm going to Fife. It's like, what? It's like, Jim, you're going to Fife. And it's just a complete. So I know exactly how everybody feels as a new property investor, because I'm actually looking at a new area now. And believe it or not, James, the numbers make absolute sense, and I should buy it. I should buy it definitely, because the numbers are all ringing, and it's somebody's going, buy it, buy it, buy it. But because it's an area I don't know, I'm completely nervous. The occupancy rate's right, the rent's right, the price is right, and it all falls into place. And it's been, you know, the person's had it since about the early 2000s, mid 2007, mid 2000, sorry. So it makes absolute sense. So I'll be interested to, you know, maybe give you an update next week if I've managed to get over my fear.
So
But I do remember. I tell you what, I do remember though. I do remember a book called Acres of Diamonds, right? And this is the one I do remember. And this is a lot of good advice for everybody out there, based on what I've learned. It's often we look over everywhere else, and we look away into the horizon for opportunity ahead of us, when in actual fact it's sitting right in front of us. And that's why they call it Acres of Diamonds, the book. It's because they're right in front of you in the ground. You've just got to go and mine them. That's really what it comes down to. But we look at the easy option, we see it, and it's in the distance, and we go and run into it because it takes time and effort, and we feel like we're doing something. But the reality is, it's right in front of you. So it's the old thing about, you know, Fife is a real good comfort zone for me. And I know I don't like using that word comfort zone. That rings alarm bells for me. But if it works, and there's 170,000 households in Fife, I've not exactly got that many. So proportionally, I mean, it makes sense for me to actually still continue investing in this area, which is under my control. But I will definitely at some point start to expand out. I might even actually say to someone else, look, you know, this is a really good deal for you. I would actually buy it. So I might actually give somebody else a top tip and say, this is a good one to buy. So I'll give you an update next week what happens with that. So definitely estate agents is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah. Remember to ask for feedback as well, because you're likely to get admittance onto a mailing list for similar properties. Always ask for feedback.
Yeah, Heather actually says, can we put ourselves on a contact list with different agencies? Absolutely. Do that every single time.
No, you must be exclusive to 5 properties.
No, I would recommend every single time, if you've got, Heather, this is a key one here, and it, you know, you might be nervous about that for the fact that you're talking to us all the time. You're thinking you maybe should stay loyal to us, but I'm no bothered where you buy the property. If the numbers make sense for you, it makes absolute sense for us. All we're going to do is manage it and look after it for you. So if you have an opportunity, then please feel free, like everybody else here, please feel free to get in touch with us and run it by us. I'm obviously an investor as well, but I will never take anybody else's investment if they've actually shown me what it is, because I don't think that's right to do at all, especially if somebody's coming to you for advice on that, and you've said that you're okay with that. So I wouldn't actually take that from someone. I would actually help them get it, and I'm sure you'd be the same, James.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't believe in I guess you class yourself as a bit of a bottom feeder if you do that sort of thing.
Yeah, listen, I've had it done in the past to me. I've had it done loads of times in the past. I mean, remember, it's 30 years, so I've seen a bit, and where people have actually said, and I've actually said to them, I was thinking about this one, and I remember it was a friend. It's like it was a friend. I went round. Genuinely, I went round, made the offer, right? The offer went in at the closing date. There was no other offers there. And by the time it came to the next day or the next week, he had got it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you weren't in for it. You never even viewed it. And he went and bought it.
Was that the same person we discussed at the networking event?
Possibly no. But that, you know, I've had it happen to me loads of times. So and I don't mind, because at the end of the day, you know, stay skint, because that's what happened to them. Because nobody wants to deal with people like that, and eventually they get found out. That's really what it comes down to. So you've always got to be above board, definitely. I think that's the case.
The thing is, it's going back to this whole thing. It's not a competition, you know. We can't buy absolutely everything, and it's just, I think it's just wrong trying to, you know, pull the rug for someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And but as well, actually, there could be opportunity on the horizon with that same person in the future. You never know what could happen, and you never know where it could happen. So definitely build relationships with every single estate agent and keep in touch with them, especially the ones that have the properties that you're after. So what I'm saying to that is, if somebody continually sell flats all the times and they're at a certain price point, that's the person to keep in touch with if that's your market. If somebody sells houses, or you know, the affordable houses, you know, maybe between 80 and 120, then that's the person you need to speak to all the time. If you're upper market, then these are the people you need to speak to all the time. So play to your market and keep in touch with the agent it normally gets that type of house in the area that you're actually in. And if you need any advice, Richard, James, myself, we're all available to give you advice for that as well at the same time. It doesn't cost you for any advice at all. Please feel free. We're more than happy to give you that. This is a sharing event. Okay, so next one, we've got estate agents out the way. Let's talk about off-market deals.
Yeah, off-market deals, sometimes referred to as private treaty or direct to vendor or D2V. So these are property opportunities. I won't use the term deal, but they're opportunities where you can cut out the middleman, the estate agent, and all that sort of stuff. So purchasing these types of properties usually comes at a lower price point because you're cutting all that sort of stuff out. People aren't having to wait a lengthy period of time to market their house, get it on, have umpteen strangers walking through their house, wearing a hole in the carpet, and the sale can happen as quick as a couple of weeks.
How do you get them, though? How do you get them, though? Is it a case that you go through? I mean, sourcers are a good option.
Yeah, we'll come into that later, because they use exact same methods as I'm about to explain. So some of these deals can be done by printing flyers, putting them through doors. It does obviously come at a cost, but by and large, if you do one purchase or sometimes two purchases, that cost is negated.
Yeah.
You can also do ad campaigns on Facebook for as little as £1 a day. What will happen is you'll set up a specific target audience, i.e. people from Fife, for example, that have been looking for, I don't know, the best estate agents in Fife or something like that.
It's all changed, believe it or not.
Well,
it's like, oh no, the EU legislation has come in for housing. So you have to you can't do age anymore. You can't discriminate on any grounds anymore to go for certain audiences. It's like it's open season. And when I spoke to Facebook, and because I was speaking to them about it, and they said, well, our algorithms learns how to work it out, who to target anyway. So it actually avoids the people at the younger age group. If you make sure you've got keywords in your advert in order to do that. And it's like, okay, right, but you've got to get it precise, or the algorithm actually thinks that you're actually looking for a scattergun effect and shows your advert to everybody.
There's a little Chrome plugin that you get called, I'll see what it's called, because I've got it. It's called Keyword Everywhere, and basically it's an SEO, so it's search engine optimization. So you put in a couple of key terms and it'll spit out absolutely everything related to that. So you can just plug that into your Facebook ad. So anybody that's looking to, say, buy a house or looking for a mortgage or whatever, it'll specifically target these people within a certain area or whatever. Like you say, the algorithm's always changing, so always try and be up to date as much as you can, because it's a bit of the dark arts when it comes to the algorithm. But
yeah,
that's one way to do it.
yeah. Remember, folks, pen and paper. Make sure you're taking notes.
Another way
is a learning opportunity.
Do you remember those supermarket ads you got at the front of the stores? Buy a sofa, 35 quid, that sort of stuff.
You can still do that, yeah.
Sticking an advert saying that you're buying old, smelly, dirty houses or whatever, any condition. You know, if you're in a position where you can pay cash, then all the better, because you're not going to have to wait a long time to get finance for the deal, or sorry, the opportunity. Must stop saying that.
Yeah.
What else? Gumtree, bizarrely enough.
Ads. I mean, Gumtree ads are, you know, you do get people in Gumtree, and that is probably quite a good market. But you're going to get you're maybe going to get a lot of time wasters. You're maybe going to get a lot of neg as well. Eh?
I think Gumtree works best when potentially maybe someone's in negative equity, or they're going through a divorce, or whatever reason they're needing the money out quick or whatever, to either settle debt or whatever.
LinkedIn ads is a good one. You tend to have LinkedIn ads for portfolio builders. So you've got people, so people with big portfolios on LinkedIn, they're like, well, we maybe just want to shift them, so that you can get it through that as well. So LinkedIn ads are actually quite good.
Yep. I'm not using LinkedIn ads
Google
yet,
ads, Google ads as well are quite good.
Yep. AdSense, I think it's called.
Yeah, and the one I've got as well is roadside ads. You see that now. There's a lot of people putting out roadside ads, but so I mean, it really is against the highway code. It's against you're not meant to do it.
I was going to say you can do it if it's in a specific designated area. What you have to be careful for is if you do guerrilla advertising, where you just stick it in somebody's fence or whatever, because it follows the same rules as estate agents. You know how you can only have your boards a certain size and it has to have, you know, it follows the same sort of process as that. So guerrilla advertising, no. But if you can find, I don't know, you ever driven through the Weems, Jim, and noticed the car garage? They've actually got bits laid out in the wall for to place your adverts.
Yeah.
And apparently that's absolutely fine as long as they're within a standard dimension.
That's as long as they're less than 3 feet. If they go beyond 3 feet, it goes into the Planning Act, and therefore you're supposed to have planning permission to put it on the wall. So
I think it's something Town and Country Act 1948 or something. I think it is.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah. So advertising, we've got estate agents. Probably one of the ones for me is speak to solicitors. It's like you had said the other week. There's a lot of solicitors out there, and some of them actually they don't actually go on any websites at all. They don't sell any houses at all, and they often think, well, it's a quick sale to get it done for the purpose. So a lot of some of the smaller solicitors, not the bigger ones, they tend to be in a estate agency.
Just remember,
smaller solicitors are a good source.
Yeah. Just remember, when you're targeting solicitors, you're targeting the right type of solicitors. You're looking for the ones that wind up estates and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
As bad as it sounds, potentially somebody's lost a loved one or whatever, but you know, quite often they don't have an interest in the property, and it's as quick as they can dispose of it as to get the money, basically, as part of the inheritance and stuff. A bit morbid, but yeah, that sometimes works.
Yeah. Banks is another one. If you get the right people in the banks, that could actually happen sometimes.
Not quite so big in Scotland, this next one, in relation to off-market deals, repossessions. So we don't get to find out a lot about repossessions in here unless you're actually in the industry and in the know. But down south, there used to be a registry of impending bankruptcies.
Yeah.
So that used to get published, and it was just a case of pay £3 or something to check for a specific area, and then you just start writing out to these people saying, look, I know you're under a bit of hard time, I'm in a position to buy, it might help you out your situation that way as well. Not so big in Scotland, like I say, but his ways and means and how to identify these.
There's a thing that you often get a wee bit of criticism about that when people are trying to do things like that, because you get a lot of trolls going on about it. But the reality is, if somebody's in repossession, they don't really have the means to actually put it on the market with an estate agent, because they have to pay for a home report, they have to pay solicitors' fees, they have to pay the agency fees to actually put it on. So often they don't have that money at all. So it's sometimes, and the fact that the embarrassment, they don't want to tell anybody.
Well, the other thing as well is there's nothing that ever good comes from burying your head in the sand. The longer you sit it out, the worse a position you're going to be in.
Yeah. So I would say definitely, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Not vultures, because at the end of the day, we want to repurpose the property for a family that may also need a property.
Mm-hmm. So contact our landlords. Got that one?
Yes, particularly now, especially going back to, I think it was it Heather's comment about, do we think it's some landlords will leave the
market
property? Leave the market.
I think you've got a lot of people. A lot of people would actually just like to bleat about it. But to be honest, the landlord market tends to be a bit apathetic. It's like they're like, unless it's really bad, that's the only reason we're going to change or we're going to do anything. And it probably is like keeping a bank account with the same bank for years and years and years. They don't tend to change because there's no real need to.
The thing you also want to watch out for is people that say they're selling stuff and they plaster all over Facebook, and by nature some people are like sheep and they will start selling off left, right and centre, and then 2 or 3 years down the line they realise, I didn't have to do that. I felt that pain now for nothing.
That usually happens. So be careful of that. For anybody going through that, just take stock, think about it for a while before you actually run in and sell your whole portfolio, because you think, right, I've had enough. It's maybe not necessarily the right thing to do. Speak to letting agents as well is a good one.
Yep.
You can often get off market as well. Friends is a good one to put the word out. Just say, look, I'm buying. Friends is a good one because it goes in line with joint venturing, doesn't it? Because often some of them might actually go, well, I actually quite fancy doing that as well. So do you want to just do something together?
You can do that, because I was quite cheeky the other week there. I'm quite sure you've seen the post where I was offering a £500 bounty for anybody that knows of an empty property.
Yep.
I would then contact that person basically through the registrars of Scotland to find out who owned the property, write them a letter in the hope that they would sell that property to me. And again, because we're not going near estate agents, there's no associated costs with that, and that tends to be where you can get a discount.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's another good one as well.
Make good use of the socials.
So property sources is probably one that we were going to speak about. I think you wanted to elaborate on that a bit more. Did you know, or did we?
Yeah. So property sources are they more or less do the same sort of process we've done above. Now the thing with property sources is they have to be compliant. So they have to have like a property redress scheme. They have to have a specific type of insurance.
Can I be honest? Would we bother about that?
No, but what you don't want is somebody that's trying to sell you a good deal. You find out that the deal falls apart because they're basically not compliant.
You're right. It's due diligence. So you make sure you do your own due diligence. I mean, I always say, but what they do at their end is entirely up to them to keep within what they're meant to be doing. But if the deal's right and the numbers are right, again, I'm assuming that everybody knows all this and what we're doing, but they probably don't. If the numbers right and the deal's right and it all rings true and everything lines up in a row, just exactly the due diligence I'm doing the one in Glasgow, then it's a foregone conclusion. It's a done deal. It's an easy option because you know what the answer is going to be because you've got a sitting tenant already. It's perfect for that.
And as with everything else, you may get your odd shyster, so always do your own numbers. In terms of refurbs and that sort of stuff, make sure that the numbers make absolute sense, because there's nothing worse than going into a deal and then coming out the other side thinking, I've just spent £3,000 plus VAT, because they do charge VAT, by the way.
Yeah.
So in that situation, you've got £3,600 just for them to give you the opportunity.
Yeah. So here's the one I had recently. I've had somebody come to me and says they're thinking about selling the portfolio. Would I want to make them an offer? And I went, go and get valuations on them all then. Because I noticed when I was at previously, the person actually, and I actually gave them advice. Says, look, if I was you, I wouldn't sell. I'd split the title. I should have just taken it, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel right doing it because I saw the opportunity there straight away. So I said to her, I would just take the title and I would split it, because and I'd wait for each tenant to leave it every single time, do the property up and sell it, because that's where you'll make the most value for your property, rather than actually selling them to me. It doesn't make sense selling them to me. I'll buy them, but you get a lot more money like that. And she went, that's brilliant advice, and went away and did it. But then she showed me the valuations of the property that were actually got by a surveyor, and it was someone else that paid for these valuations. And then that's when I learned the lesson. I thought, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not paying for valuations for it's like, you're wanting to sell them, you get the valuations, and then you send them to me and tell me what you want. That's what it comes down to. I'm no pie in the sky and hoping for the best and putting all my money out for to tell you the answer, and then you go and sell to someone else. So they're away getting all the valuations, and they'll come back to me in good time. But I think that's really good advice to do that. Just give us a big thumbs up if you're still with us. If we're still, coming across right. A smiley face if you're not really sure what we're talking about yet, and we could maybe elaborate on a bit more. If there is a bit you want us to elaborate on, then by all means just say.
I think one thing we haven't addressed
more on here or there. Yeah.
I think one thing we haven't addressed is how you find these property sources. So a lot of them use Facebook, and it's usually just a simple click through to access their mailing list. You get put on the mailing list, and you'll get regular emails from them saying, "Oh, I've got an opportunity for a essay in Edinburgh." Right, I'm not interested in an essay, but I will look at your BRR that you've got in Dunfermline, for example. And how it normally works is that you either join a WhatsApp group or a text group or an email, whatever, and you'll get opportunities pretty much as they come in.
Perfect. Everybody's with us. Duncan, Heather, George, and Keith, thanks very much for feeding us back to us. It's important that we get feedback, guys. Susan as well. We're loving the feedback, because at the end of the day, we understand that you're still on the same page as us. We're going in the right direction. We're giving the right advice about that. And Alan actually said, I probably don't know how to do the numbers really. And yeah, we'll probably cover that again. Maybe actually, we've not got time. I was going to say we'll cover it at the end of this, but we've literally got 10 minutes. So we'll cover that next week. We'll make sure next week we talk about that first, Alan. So next week, Alan, for you, we'll talk about the numbers, and I'll talk about Memorial Road and how that worked for me and how I got it at that price.
Yeah, we've got a couple of houses to show off, haven't we, Jim?
Yeah.
Because we forgot we never forgot we ran out of time last week.
Yeah, so I'll purposely say Memorial Road's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about next week, Alan, and I'll show you the numbers, and I'll show everybody else the numbers as well. So yeah, the saucers, it definitely is a case of going on all the landlord pages and everything like that as well, because you'll get loads and loads of saucers in there. I think possibly look up on LinkedIn, and there may be a category of property sourcers on LinkedIn. You can go and search on there somehow. And there for property sourcers. The regular ones in the belts and braces, to be honest, I just go straight to Rightmove sometimes, and it's an easy option, and I'll show you why. And I'm not really sure if I've shown anyone else this before, but when I'm looking at properties, I'll give you a quick.
Just while you're calling that up, Jim, there's another one as well, networking events. So if you go to networking events, you'll quite often get introductions into other people that are either selling property or sourcing or whatever. So
yeah, networking events are a really good one. That's actually, thanks for that. That is a good one. So Zoopla, first thing I do, can you see that okay?
We can.
First thing I do in Zoopla is I look for the area I've got. I'm looking for 5. I'm looking for properties, I search. And I immediately just go straight for that filter, and I go, and what is it? I go the lowest price first.
Yep.
And I literally just look from that straight away. There's a 1-bedroom flat for sale in Kirkcaldy at $5,000. Wow. Now obviously there's something no right about that.
It's riddled with darkness. I've had a look.
Yeah, but it's worth a check. And there's another one at 8, and there's another one at 8. So there's maybe 2 or 3 of them. Land for sale, quickly skim through. There's another one, 31,000, 2-bedroom flat, Bruce's Gardens, Dunfermline. Wow. Really?
I think that's a part share though, Jim, is it not?
All right, okay. It doesn't say that in the summary, so you're probably right then. So Wellesley Road, 2-bedroom flat, guide price 32,000. You've got 35,000 there, 35, 39, 1-bedroom flat in Viceroy Street in Kirkcaldy. I mean, that's a good earner. I mean, that's, you know, one bedroom flat in Kirkcaldy is around about 375, maybe even touching 400.
Yep.
39,000 under the 4% stamp duty. So you're not paying ADS if you buy it for that. If you get it under 39,000, you might want to sneak in there. If they want a wee bit extra, you pay another 2,000 or 3,000 for fixtures and fittings. And
Yep.
you give them 42 instead, but you've got a 39 price point, which still brings you under ADS, fixtures and fittings, $3,000.
And the beauty with that one, if you find it difficult to get a dentist at the minute, it's right opposite the road. It's right opposite that property.
I tell you what, that's a pretty good one, eh?
Aye.
The numbers stack up there straight away. I'm gobsmacked that there's still opportunities out there like that. Julian Court, one bedroom, first for homes. That's on at 39,950 at 995. Classic one as well. You know, that's a one bedroom. So again, under the threshold. And if you get it for that price, you're no paying 4% ADS, 40 grand. So there's good opportunities out there. The market is so restricted now that anything will rent at any point in time and almost anywhere. And I'll give you an example of that just quickly. Just jump onto that before we finish off. Just jump onto Fife again to rent. And literally, here we go. Yeah, 71 properties in the whole of Fife for rent.
Go filter by cheapest first, or well, lower value.
There you go, 400. Well, that's a house. There, 395, 448, 450, one bedroom flat, 450, one bedroom flat, 450, one bedroom flat, 450, 450, 460 for a two bed in Newborough, 475 for a two bed in Den Walk. So there you go, straight away.
Yep.
You know, it tells you there straight away that there's, you know, there's opportunities there definitely, and the returns that are available as a result of that. So that's where I am in terms of things. I think that's a really good deal overall. So there is golden opportunities out there, guys. It's an easy one to do. You can do that with Rightmove. You can ideally probably do it with Zoopla, because more estate agents will be on Zoopla than Rightmove, because Rightmove costs a fortune to go on.
Yep, and I believe they've just put their fees up again, haven't they?
I've not had any fee increase, but we spend a fair bit of money. We spend 40 grand a year on Rightmove. So it's a fair chunk. Whereas Zoopla's not as much. Solicitors' websites, S1 Homes is a good one.
Yep, it's often overlooked because it used to belong to STV at one stage, and it fell under the same banner as Friends Reunited, but they sold it off and made a loss, a significant loss.
Other ones as well is private sellers via free websites.
Yep.
This is where private sellers didn't understand. It's like if you're a seller out there and you've got your house on a £99 website, and you're saying, oh, we can get it on that, you're getting taken to the cleaners. Because somebody like me and somebody like James will take complete advantage of that, because the very fact that you don't understand the mentality of using a £99 website and why you shouldn't use it, it tells you everything about the way you'll negotiate. It's a golden opportunity for people like us to take advantage of that. That's my bit. Empty properties, you said it yourself, James, sticking a note through the door. Assisted sales even, you know, you can often get an estate agent. Here's a classic here, where you can possibly agree at a price to refurb a property, and they get that exit price and you get the additional value that you add to the property, and that's profit in your pocket, but you pay the expense of refurbing it for them.
And it's always a good way, particularly if there's a bit of negative equity in a property. The agreement you're making is that you're going to bring it above the equilibrium point where, you know, they're not going to make any money out of it. So
yeah,
it allows them to get an exit and allows you to make a bit of money on
it does, because there's sometimes in slower markets there's not a lot of buyers out for properties that need refurbed, in markets which are saturated. It's easy just now, but when they need big refurbs, a lot of people can't afford to do that because there's not enough money for them to do it. So that actually they don't get as much as they should get, whereas the refurb opens it up to a huge amount of people, including first-time buyers, who can literally just mortgage right up to the hilt to get the home report value.
And just, one thing I would say with that, though, is just be careful you don't go into an area that's got quite a relatively low ceiling price, because there's nothing worse than spending, say, £60,000 on a property, throwing 20 grand at it and find out it's worth 65 at the end.
So again, it's doing your homework on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Referrals, a good one as well. People that know people people, that's another one as well. Facebook community pages. And possibly, here's the next one, and probably the final one that I know of, is keep existing home and just remortgage it, rent it, and go and buy another one. Now, if this is your principal private residence, and I've checked on this, and you go to buy another principal private residence, you don't pay 4% ADS on it because it's moving from your principal private residence to a principal private residence, and you can keep your existing one.
I got stuck with
that. You shouldn't be paying ADS on it. Shouldn't be paying it at all. So you should go back to them and challenge that.
Right, I might have to have a discussion about that off.
Yeah, because I did it in the early days, James. I got caught out, and they were insisting, no, if you move, you'll have to pay 4%. And I'm like, why? Because I'm moving from a principal private residence. But you've got a second home. But so if I didn't, if I was selling my principal, so if I sold the one I was in, then okay, and then I moved to another one, even though I've got other properties, would I get it? They went, no, you wouldn't pay it. Away you go. That can't be right. It's like, and it's because they don't know themselves. So, it is something to challenge, definitely. So I would go back.
I should, because it was significant. I think it was about £9,000 I ended up spending because I was moving into a far bigger property.
Yeah.
Far more expensive property, rather.
I never even got to negotiation skills, but that could be a deep dive session for the Thursday club. So that would be a Thursday club. We'll leave that to the Thursday club. Give us a thumbs up if you followed us tonight and you were enjoying it. A wee smiley face as well if you get a chance. Listen, guys, if you get a chance as well, please like this post. Please share this post. Give it some love. For goodness sake, we need to get out there to a bigger audience. There's more people that get involved in this. There's more knowledge that gets shared as a result of it. There's a bigger audience we'll get as well. And that's what will build it for all of us. Remember, a rising tide lifts all ships. Genuinely. And it means the more people that come together to appreciate each other and actually share their knowledge and their understanding of how to do things, it actually benefits everybody else involved as a result of that. And so a rising tide lifts all ships. That's what it comes down to.
And just to say, all social media platforms have a like, share, and alerts system. So as many as you can, please.
Yeah, Barry, quick one. Yes, possibly you might not get a buy-to-let mortgage less than 50,000, but I think they're relaxing that a bit. They know some of the lenders.
There's a couple of specialist lenders.
Yep. So Barry, you're in there. If you want to contact us, just message me direct, and then I'll put you in touch with the right people to possibly do that for you.
I think me and Jim have to know the same person.
Yep. And Alan, thank you very much for watching. Keith, Heather, George, and Susan, thanks very much for taking part, guys. And until next week on the Wealth Creation Show, bye-bye from me, and it's bye-bye from James.
That's me.